Morning! I am in desperate need of some caffeine to jumpstart me this morning, so we're stopping by the Midwestern Mecca, Casey's General Store. Cheers to today. Hopefully it's better than the last 2 days of planning. Looks like someone's been working some dirt west of Mattoon. This is God's country up here. Took a little bit of a sidetrack this morning to get a couple of bags of pioneer beans to finish that last through on the field where I was yesterday, and I ran out. And we are out of here, headed back to the farm. Normally I would do whatever it takes to finish the last through on a farm if I'm almost done for the night, didn't have any seed close on hand, didn't want to bother our seed dealer, and the forecast is still pretty strong for the next couple of days. We don't have a lot of dry dirt either, so I was like, well, I might as well go home and rest up. Obviously didn't help me because I'm already mainlining the caffeine. There's something special about that early morning sky. Look at that. Tractors here, tractors there, tractors everywhere. Another person's been working ground. All is quiet at the farm. It'd be great to take the Hagee out to the field and spray the couple hundred acres I have planted. It'd only be a couple hours of work. Too bad they still don't have my Hagee to me. Not complaining. I've got other things I can do, like fuel up this 8370R. Saving the world, one fuel up at a time. I will say that South American farmers definitely have a handful of disadvantages compared to US farmers, although they also have a lot of advantages, like the fact that they're not getting Tier 4 final engines. They're still running interim Tier 3 engines, none of these diesel exhaust fluid systems, no regenning. I mean, they are getting much cleaner burning engines, or clean's not the right word because technically this is supposed to be clean, but they're getting much more raw engines. And I think a raw engine is a little bit better in terms of efficiency and output. I'm not going to speculate as to whether or not it's truly better for the environment, because people wouldn't make us put the step on our tractors if it didn't do something. I put one bag in both tanks. I'm going to put one more between two, so essentially 1.5 should be enough to finish the field. I'll put the fourth bag just on the steps here. If I need it, I can use it. Hopefully this gets me to the end. Both sides are pretty even. Should be enough to finish what I'm doing. We're at about 0.8 units per acre, so one bag only gets me 0.8 acres. I'd say I have 2 to 2.5 acres left to plant. There's also seed in the units, you got to remember that. So I'm sure I'm in good shape. Let's take a moment and appreciate that sunrise. Magnificent this morning. It's hard to argue that tillage doesn't dry the ground out. Look how much dust is on this planter. And I've only planted a couple hundred acres in the first few days. Top this off. I want to take a quick moment to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, AG1. AG1 is a comprehensive and convenient daily source of nutrition with 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients made just for about everybody. It focuses on the two most important aspects of our health, the nutrients that your body requires each day, and it provides a foundation of long-term gut health. On top of all of the supplemental benefits of AG1, I personally enjoy how essential of a daily habit it is. As I'm waging war on planting season, the first step of every day is waking up, putting back a serving of AG1, and knowing that my body's bases are covered to conquer the hard day that's ahead of me. The best part is, it actually tastes pretty good. It really is a daily habit that you don't have to dread. You can enjoy supporting your body's immune system, your digestive health, your energy, your mental clarity with one simple product every day. With the long days and hours and frustrations that are involved with planting season, I, for one, could use every benefit under the sun. If you're interested in getting started on an order today, head over to athleticgreens.com/aTrippyFarmer to get started on your order as soon as possible. Individuals from my community who follow that link or use code aTrippyFarmer at checkout will get a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D3 and K2, as well as 5 free travel packs. It's a great deal. It's a great product. Head over there and check it out. Appreciate AG1 for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the action. Let's run down the road to the west and see how dry that farm is. If there wasn't much moisture that came up overnight, I can probably just run out there first thing and plant those beans in. I hate to toot my own horn, but that looks great today. The more consecutive days in a row you go without rainfall, the less moisture that is going to work its way up overnight. It's pretty much as simple as it sounds. There's just less moisture in the ground to kind of conductively or hydraulically lift up through the soil overnight. You can really visualize the hydraulic / conductive movement of the moisture by looking at where my seed trench is versus just the cultivated ground. Where the row unit runs, the soil is packed back together, zippered up, and there's a lot more moisture that finds its way up to the top of that. Where it's been cultivated and the soil is much looser, the water just does not have the ability to work its way up to the top of the profile because there's not a lot of well-connected or well-compacted soil up there. That's not to say there isn't moisture down below, because there's plenty. These corn stalks, unless they're bone dry, always come up a little bit chunky through the field cultivator. That's just a normal part of the process. Not too concerned about it. We may be looking for a rain here though in the next couple of weeks if we want to get a nice level finish out here in good stand. I may give this an hour or so before I bring the planter out, because you can see it is still a little wet in here. There's all those beans you guys spilled out of the bag trying to move seed around last night. Are you guys ever going to show up and clean up your mess? Wasn't me who did that. I'm in a little bit of a pickle right now. I am completely cranked up on caffeine, ready to go, but I need to wait for my field to dry. That combination of energized and twiddling your thumbs does not go well together, so I'm gonna burn off a little bit of time and energy by driving around and scouting fields. It looks like for the most part, all of the fields we have are still just a little too wet. Really needed to warm up a little bit more into the high 70s, maybe low 80s, to get the rest of the moisture out of the ground so we can think about working some of these fields that are a little bit on the swampy side. This is a time where those full tile systems would really pay, because it'd be pulling some of that subsurface moisture out and you'd be able to get in quicker to do tillage and plant and hopefully result in higher yields. Somewhere over this direction, I believe we have a field cultivator. I may just have to hop in it and scratch the itch, you know? This wheat looks phenomenal on the right side of the road. Found it. There's definitely a reason I didn't finish this field. A little bit on the wet side. Oh boy, there's a double whammy if I've ever seen one. Plugged basket and a rock on the inside. How is that even possible? Is one of these wider? Fortunately for us, God invented a tool just for scenarios like this. It's called the negotiator. Don't worry, I had my safety squints on so I wouldn't catch any pieces in the eye. Take that, rock! That felt good. I gotta pick that up now. Glad to report I got my 15-second workout in for the day. Honestly, carrying that sledgehammer to the tractor and back was probably more of a workout than hammering out that rock. Still not sure how the stars aligned for that one. Obviously, a very minimal amount of tillage has been done. I've already noted that the ground conditions are not great. Something we want to look at on these corn stalks is how deep the field cultivator is going. If you go to the bottom of what I would call the pan of the tillage, the bottom of where those sweeps are running, and see how deep it was going in the ground, you can determine whether or not you need to make adjustments or you need to leave the field. If you're running 3 or 4 inches in the ground in corn stalks, you are going to pull up moisture and subsequently clods of soil. If you can just scratch the ground 1.5 inches to 2 inches, avoid pulling up that wet stuff at the bottom, crack open this light dirt that is very forgiving to tillage. You're not going to cause any kind of long-term issues by working a tad bit on the wet side unless it's completely mud. You may be able to get by, enhance the drying, and ultimately get out here and plant this afternoon. Daily oil check. Oh geez, almost running out the top. While I let the tractor warm up a little bit before we put it to work, I'm gonna hop out and check the blinker fluid. First thing I noticed is she's got it set to 2.5 inches, probably way too deep for running ahead of a soybean planter on corn stalks that have already been worked in the fall. We'll back that off to 1.5 inches, see what kind of finish we get. Towel hole, add that one to the list. It looks okay-ish. I've seen much worse and I've seen much better at the same time. The dynamic of lighter, more marginal soils like this is that you can work them a little bit on the wet side. It's not gonna hurt you. I mentioned that earlier in the video. The opposite part is that if you do not plant the beans in great conditions, it could come back to haunt you if you get some hard rainfalls or don't get enough rainfalls. I figured that I might as well check the land bridge while I'm back here. It looks good. Looks can be deceiving though. Normally by this point in the year, we've had a couple really big rains that have washed this off. There's a culvert with a bunch of dirt over the top. Water either runs over the top and washes it, or it's cutting inside of the culvert, not inside of the actual culvert, but around it, and creating washes through here that you don't see till you take something over and it slightly collapses. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 17 if you want to be kind of sketchy, 16 and a half maybe. I would say that my boots are about a foot long with each step, so we've got 15 to 16 foot of width to cross that. Any further than that and it would be kind of sketchy. You can technically overhang a little bit, but you don't want to do it too much. This tractor sure could use a few more horses under the hood to pull this field cultivator. I don't recognize this. What is that? Mud flap off of something? Why is it out in our field? That's not a mud flap. Could be off of a spreader maybe. If you asked me in the morning what I was gonna find in the field that day, I'd never be able to give you a good answer. Dad and I are still confident that one of these days we'll find a gold bar. Just hasn't happened yet. I backed the field cultivator out of the ground about ½ an inch. I mean, I've seen better, I've seen worse. I think there's a little bit more moisture where she worked the first time, so we're gonna let that air out. Yeah. I kind of figured that's what the boss would say. We are going to give it just a little bit of time, some sunshine, and maybe work it wet. The complexity of this decision is that we could possibly work it a little bit on the wet side like it is, let it dry out for a little bit, then come hit it this afternoon with the planter, put our beans in the ground 1 to 1.5 inches to make sure they stay in the moisture. There's not a big chance of rainfall, though a little bit of rain would not hurt a farm like this once you planted it after it's dried out. From an agronomic standpoint, the question you have to ask yourself is that are you better off gambling by planting this light soil early in April before it's really warmed up tremendously? If it cools back off, these soybeans will struggle. On the opposite side of the coin is if we get regular rainfalls, this ground is not going to dry out as quick as its counterparts. Soybeans typically do better if they're planted earlier. We put 160,000 out here, hope we get 130 to 140 final stand and maybe maximize our yield potential. I don't know. That's really the $1 million question. We'll probably go ahead and plant it because that's typically what we do. You never really know what the right answer is until the end of the season. One of these days I'll find the crystal ball. Just hasn't showed up yet. Really need to shut this down, but man, that looks great out there. Farming's like eating potato chips. You're never gonna have just one. My name's Andy, and I'm addicted to field cultivating. I just worked this entire field. It's only like 35 acres, but still, I was supposed to stop after a couple of rounds. It just looked so good and I was having so much fun, I kept going. Oh yes, we definitely found another field to plant today. Andy, you've got to stop looking at it. You're gonna end up back in that cab. Just turn your head and drive away. Looks like Dad and the rest of the crew are getting geared up to plant some corn somewhere. I'm gonna hop in the bean planter and go and finish my one little through. A little low. I am parked on the hillside though, so it's probably perfect. Don't think I need this spring. Okay, I'm gonna fire this up, let it warm up, go to the field, plant my little strip, hopefully not run out of beans, and then move on to greener pastures. After I finished the pass on that field, I decided to just bring it over to the next field, get it staged and ready to load, only increasing the likelihood that I plant this farm today. It won't be right this minute or probably even the next couple hours, so we're just gonna shut it off here, go find something else to do. Jeff picked me up over at the planter. We drove around and checked out a few fields. There's a lot of them that are getting close and a lot more tractors running in the countryside right now. He's gonna hop in the big 9620, go about 25 or 30 miles to the west to the other side of Windsor and go see if we got a big 200-acre field of good dark soil. That may work. If it does, he's gonna go ahead and work all that, and we should be planting corn there by the end of the day. Uh-oh, the Uphoff boys are out playing in the dirt with some red equipment. It's go time here in Coles County. As their neighbor, it is my obligation to be nosy, so I'm gonna go give them a hard time about working ground. They said they're about to rock and roll, do a little last minute prep work in the shop, and then the planters are gonna come out. Good luck to them. I stopped by the John Deere dealership to see if they'd worked on the Hagee at all. They hadn't, which I'm not surprised. The Hagee mechanic is stretched pretty thin right now with all the big operators rolling. Speaking of sprayers, there's one right there. Gonna pick my sister up, run over to that field cultivator that I set this morning, and get some tillage done. Hello, dog. Katie just took off with the field cultivator. She's got a little over 100 acres here to keep her busy. Neighbors are running to the south, a lot of dust flying. Ground's still a little bit on the wet side. It is gonna get up into the low 80s today, along with a pretty violent wind, which will dry everything out very quick. That's the difference between what I worked about an hour and a half ago compared to what Katie just worked a second ago. All of this moisture will come out. When I come through here with the planter, it'll knock all those clods down. We should have a pretty good finished product. My dad just called requesting seed, so I'm gonna go help Chris load that. Sounds like our Windsor farm where Jeff went with the field cultivator must be a green light if Dad's needing 100 units of corn. Looks like the birds got their revenge for all those trees I pulled down next to the drainage ditch the other day. That's all right. It's a price I'm willing to pay to get the water moving. I've got the red pickup with the corn seed tender behind me. Chris is here. We're gonna put 2 boxes on here for Dad. Just talked to the boss on the phone. He wants a box of Pioneer 1136 111-day corn on the back. On the front, he wants this newer DeKalb number, 11135. I believe he's going to split the planter, meaning he's going to put one hybrid on one side and one hybrid on the other. Gives us an interesting little side-by-side in terms of yield between the two hybrids. A lot of farmers used to split the planter regularly, but anymore, they're so confident in the hybrids, in the research and reliability of data that comes in on new products that they're not as worried about one of them failing. Either way, it'll be cool to have the DeKalb and the Pioneer, similar relative maturity corns right next to each other. The farm where these 2 hybrids are going is really productive soil. Usually some of our best as long as we don't get too much rain. Need that corn yet. He'll have an hour on the road to get to Windsor from where he's planning at today, north of Mattoon. Maybe not quite an hour, 45 minutes. I'm gonna do some reorganizing in the shed. Chris is running to get everyone Subway for lunch, or at least Dad, Chris, and Jeff. Katie and I usually refrain from eating fast food if we can. I'm gonna reorganize the seed shed to get my Don Mario 3756Es out in the open. Once I get all this done, I may grab a quick bite to eat inside, and then I'm going to go get my seed tender and load it up. Katie's chugging away on the field cultivating, so my ground will be ready soon. I've got my first box of the Don Mario 3756 Enlist soybeans staged and ready to go on the forklift. I've got to put quite a few on my seed tender to plant all those farms over there, hoping to get them all knocked off by mid-afternoon, barring any kind of issues with the planter, which is definitely a possibility. Before I do all that, I obviously need to go get my seed tender. So on to the next thing. Oh man, I'm kind of all over the place today if you couldn't tell. Hopefully at some point end up in the bean planter. Okay, we're gonna get this in the first try. Got a good feeling. Oh no, you may have jinxed us. One of these days we'll get it in the first try. Let's finally do something for ourselves this morning. Let's go get some beans. Since we do need the ground to dry a little bit behind the field cultivator, I took a quick lunch break.
I thought maybe that'd keep me a little more energized and positive this afternoon, especially if I have to deal with planter issues. We've got about 180 acres I'm planning on planting. That means that we need a little over 200 units, right around 205 or 206 for the totality of that. If we're planting at that 160,000 plant per acre population, that means that I need 5 40-unit boxes of the Don Mario 3756C. It's a 3.7 enlist soybean. Planted it for 3 or 4 years now, been great. Highly recommend you check out the Don Mario genetics if you're looking to try something new on the soybean side. I'll also have to take some loose bags with me. I'll have to see how it shakes out on the last field. I don't really want to throw the untreated bags in because you can return untreated soybeans. You cannot return treated soybeans. I'm gonna set you guys on the ground to spectate and go ahead and put my 5 boxes in the tender. That job is done. Time to head west. The seed tender is a little over half loaded with heavy soybeans, and my 3/4 ton pickup truck can definitely tell. Doesn't matter what direction you go, there's neighbors playing in the dirt. You love to see it. It's definitely plant season here in central Illinois. Scott and Alan look like they've been putting on some gas, have the planter out of the barn. Look at that. There's 3 turkeys right there. I'm showing 80 on the dash, windows down type of weather. It's no wonder that everyone and their brother's out farming today. Let's get this big rig loaded up with some 3.7 soybeans. My poor pickup truck's like, please sir, get the beans off the back. It's really squatting down. Katie's running over there. She's got this first 60 acres done. Dirt looks nice and dry here. Couple field cultivators, 2 planter there, multiple tillage devices all around. Definitely a good sign that we should be planting. Okay, that may just be confirmation bias. There's a lot of people working around here. Every farm is different, so they may have drier soil than us. Either way, I'm planting. It's kind of like riding a moped. As long as everyone else is riding one too, you don't look that silly. Look at how huge these Don Mario seed beans are. I'm optimistic that they'll be this large at harvest because those are gonna have good test weight. Y'all know what time it is. Plant time. While the tractor warms up and boots up, we'll switch to the appropriate field. Got that. 31A73, those were Pioneers, 3.1s. We are going to the DM 3756E. I should already have them. Yes, I do, because we planted these 3 years in a row. I thought that was Jeff coming back from Windsor already, but another neighbor with a similar setup. I don't see any reason why we can't just go ahead and unfold this here. Generator's running. Just got to fire up our 3 vacs. I like to shut those when I'm done so I don't actually click on them. 1 will control my up and down, and 2 will have my marker here at the beginning, and then when I'm done with the inrows, I'll flip that close too. Planter, I am begging you, please give me 1 complete field without issue. It would really make my life so much more enjoyable than it has been the last 2 days. We're off. I'm not sure whether or not I'm planting directly on the property line or over on the neighbor. I hope he takes it upon himself to work out my beans if they're too close. We don't get offended by that. I'd rather have beans there than weeds. The field I'm planting is to my right. Katie's working the next one. I'm leaving myself a courtesy marker though, because I will be planting that shortly. Here comes the one that's currently important. With the soil conditions not being 100% perfect, I think it is extra important that we check our depth. There's a few clods on top, and as a matter of fact, it looks like we're struggling to get our beans all the way in the ground. I may run the down pressure up to help get these in here, because if our seal over the top is that loose and aerated, we'll probably need a rain to get these beans out. This is 1 row over. They're actually in the ground perfectly. About 1.25 inches. I wonder if that other one either just hopped out of the trench because the pressure wasn't high enough, or possibly that was a field cultivator tract that was a little bit harder. It doesn't really seem like we're causing a lot of compaction with our downforce. See, we're digging on both sides of the seed trench here. I think we're probably good to run that up a little bit.
Right now we're running 245. Let's go up to 300 or so. 305 is an uneven number. Let's go 300 even. I like that. Gonna plant down this in and see how it looks. Hanging over a little bit to feed the rabbits and probably the pheasants too. Although I don't know if pheasants eat soybeans.
You know, if we knew we were going to get a nice gentle 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch rainfall, we wouldn't even have to check the depth. You could probably just spill the beans on the ground and they'd come up. About 1.5 inches in the ground. A little bit on the deep side. We're not guaranteed any rain though. We want to make sure they're in the moisture. Got a nice finish here. This one is 1.5 inches as well. I think we'll take that. Oh, one of these days I'm going to plant an entire field without having to get out of the cab one time. Just haven't had one of those days yet. It should be criminal to finish a field that quickly. I don't even know if I was here for 45 minutes. Be done even quicker if I didn't talk and check the seed depth 10 times. I'm just not even going to mention how the planter's been performing. As far as I'm concerned, it's doing terrible still. Don't want to jinx us. It is a little windy in my professional opinion to be spraying. Heck, I can't even see what I'm doing right now because the wind is coming up right by me. I've been by probably 5 terrace inlets right now. I've hit 2 of them. One of them was just completely missing, so I don't know how you score that. There's more to come on the next piece, and there's 2 more on this one. Let's just hope I don't get out of the tractor much more. Feeling pretty good with the width of this planter right now. Would you just look at that flex? Pretty good for a 60-foot planter. Arguably not as close to as good as the Fit Momentum. That thing's like a gymnast on the hills. Giving all my row units a quick once over because I've pretty much got the end rows done, meaning that I'll be hitting it pretty fast here once I get going straight with auto steer. If you'd asked me 5 years ago whether or not I should try to go through this wet spot up here, I'd tell you no. Well, I've matured since then. I'm going to do my best to go around it and not make a mess. Starting with straddling this side. Oh boy. There's mud in the closing wheel. I am so sure of that. I'd say it's probably time to run some laterals in the bottom of these terraces because I have never planted this field and that not be a swamp. This poor planter. Just why are you doing this to me? Those beans that I just put in the mud will never come up. I probably shouldn't have hung over so far into it. I wonder what's causing that long-standing issue of water there. Is it because of the terrace dirt work decades ago when they moved the soil, never really fixed it right, or does it just need tile on the bottom of it? Is there old tile that are broken down? I don't know. I'm tired of farming around that. There's still standing water right there. The neighbor to the south that I've been watching for the last couple of hours got a new Kinsey planter. He's really got a nice fleet of equipment. He's got one of those new cool green Fendt front wheel assist tractors doing some tillage. He's had all sorts of issues this first day out with the new Kinsey planter. He was texting me about it, and I told him, don't worry, the deers aren't any better. It must just be a new planter thing. You're gonna have a lot of issues. This little girl, though, isn't new anymore. She's been through the mud. Probably lost half her value now. Just finished the second piece on this 60-acre field. That's the fastest I've ever done that, which shouldn't come as a surprise. The added width and the lack of turning that comes with it really helps cut down on your time on oddly shaped fields like this. You know, before I fold up, I better zoom out on this map and make sure I didn't miss something because I spent a lot of time going back and forth in weird shapes and directions, and I'd hate to miss a spot. That was that big wet spot with standing water next to that one inlet. That was an inlet I went right over the top of. There's another inlet. I actually got close to it. There's that draw in the middle. Other than that, I think we got it all. We'll be back out here to replant, don't worry. It'll be June or July though before those spots are dry enough to farm. Other than those couple of mud holes, this is going way too well right now. There's Katie over there to the east working the next field I will do after I get this one planted. Let's knock out another 60 acres here really quick and move on to the next one. I got the ends done and a few throughs on the front piece. Before I get too far along, I'm going to cross the drainage ditch on this land bridge that we checked earlier and plant this little back piece. It's no more than 4 acres, maybe 5. As much as I'd love to just fly across this unfolded, that isn't logistically possible. Got to put the wings in. Just close our eyes and go forward. Tell me if it falls in. Okay, we're good. little pieces done, back to the big one on the front. I'm starting to get really good at this folding thing. We somehow managed to time this perfectly. I'm gonna need seed here soon for this field and the next one. Should be able to fit it all on here. Jeff was coming back from Windsor with the field cultivator to work just south of the first fields I planted. I tracked him down on the John Deere Operations Center to see the location of the 620 and asked if he would park the 620 when it got here and bring me seed, because Chris, our normal seed guy, is sitting at the field with Dad, making sure he doesn't break down an hour away from home. Makes sense to do that, and he lucked out and got Jeff to show up. He's coming up the road right now, so we'll just back up before we start this through, put this down and fill her up. There he is, right on time. There goes Jeff. Do some more field cultivating ahead of the corn planter. Katie's still running over there to the east somewhere. I see her dust, but I don't see her. We should have enough seed in the tanks to plant our next 2 farms. I'm gonna go back to the south end because it appears to be drier. I like to get a little weight off before I try to cross these wet terraces here on the north end. They tend to be a little bit swampy. Jeff's to our south over there making a dust. I'm gonna be here for not much longer, trying not to get stuck. I hate to even talk about it. This DB60 with the Max Emerge units, when it is running properly, is an absolute stallion of a soybean planter. And it has been running properly all day. I also got some really exciting news while I was finishing up that last field. My sprayer is officially ready, barring me picking it up and doing some paperwork. We may be able to do some spraying tomorrow. It's unusual that we get to plant these farms over here in early April. I guess we'll find out at harvest time whether or not this was a good idea. The planting conditions have ranged anywhere from, wow, that's pretty good for this time of year, to, man oh man, that may need a rain to come up. Most of it was in pretty good shape, but there are a few pockets that really could use a lot of improvement. The sun is starting to set to the west, which isn't very good because once the moisture starts to work up on this ground, it's not going to seal very well. I'm actually planting rather fast right now, trying to get as much done before the conditions worsen. I'll still be able to plant once there's moisture. I just think the trench will be in a lot better shape if I get the seed in the ground and cover it up before the moisture comes. As I've been sitting here planting these fields, I've come to the realization that it's actually pretty impressive for a soybean variety to stay on the farm for 3 to 4 years by choice. A lot of the turnover in genetics is so quick that a hybrid or variety may only last a year or two. Now, there are exceptions to the rule where they last longer, typically indicating that those are very strong genetics. These Don Mario 3756Es are definitely in that group. It was the first enlist soybean we've tried. They've been phenomenal. It doesn't matter what kind of acre we put it on, highly productive or low productive, they still do a good job, barring that they get the according rainfalls they need like any other soybean plant. Really don't have anything bad to say about the Don Mario beans. It also probably skews my opinion of these varieties that they're sold in service by Burris Seed out of Orangeville. I know the Burris is somewhat, they're a good family-oriented company, kind of like Beck's Hybrids is, and it's hard to really throw any kind of rocks at a family like that. Other than the odd untreated bag here or there, every single unit of beans planted on our farm this year is going to have some kind of SDS treatment. Because most of our beans are Pioneer and our Pioneer dealer treats with a Levo, a lot of our beans have a Levo on them, including our Asgrow beans actually. These beans right here, the Don Mario beans, have Syngenta Sultro seed treatment. It isn't really surprising to say that Syngenta claims their SDS treatment is better than BASF's. They are quite literally competitors for each other. You guys distracted me and I didn't get the planter down soon enough on the end. Now I gotta go back and overlap a little bit. finished up the front piece. I've just got a couple acres on the back after I cross this Kentucky bridge to do. I'm in a bit of a pickle because it is much darker outside than it looks like it is on camera. Nutrient has a quad track running on the other side of the hill. I think we may be a little bit of a Mexican standoff in terms of the light game. I really need to turn my lights on to see across this creek, but at the same time, my pride is kind of getting the best of me. I've got to do it. I literally cannot see. Oh, that is so much better. Let's do our best to get across here without breaking anything. I don't see why we'd have any issues. At the same time, though, I really have no idea what's going to happen. Last tiny little patch of the night, and then we can go home. This piece is not even 2 planter widths wide, so we will be done here very quickly. Not even sure why I'm using my marker, because I'm not going to follow it. If I get all cocky, I'm liable to run over a deer antler here. And we are done for the evening. I'm going to fold this up and head in. I can't get over how good the neighbor's wheat looks. They must have the secret sauce. I'm fairly certain that I just ran square over a frog. I can only imagine the pace that came out the back end after getting squished by this tractor and planter. Left there is the field that we finished the last through on this morning. This morning feels like a lifetime ago now. That's what happens when you work for 13 hours. Jeff finished working that field that he was on a few hours ago, brought the 9620R in for fuel and def. Dad didn't finish planting that field. He said that the moisture came up and he just didn't like the way it was finishing. Pretty good reason to shut down. That 9620R is such a beast. Imagine how fast it can pull this planter. I would normally park this right at the fuel barrel for topping off first thing in the morning. I'm hoping to get some sprayer action going right after sunrise if I can bring it out from the dealership. Obviously, they're probably not going to send it full of fuel. They stopped doing that years ago. I'll have to fill it up, probably put def in it. That'll be a learning experience. And then, if I'm lucky, I may just get to put some soybean residual products down. Unfortunately, between now and then, I gotta go home and edit a video. That's always a nice hour or two project, although my wife does a phenomenal job trimming the fat off of the videos and streamline my editing when I get home. It's just not quite as fun after a long day of work, especially when you just want to spend time with your family, as opposed to sitting behind a computer screen. That's the price I pay, though, to keep you guys all entertained. Anyways, that's going to be it for me. I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!
Yeah.